There's a certain feeling as the music starts, when we lean in and close our eyes in anticipation. If the breath is just right, if the music is just right, the moment becomes extraordinary. There are some sounds that once heard can never be forgotten. There are glimpses into a feeling that's beyond the ordinary. Like 1,000 sparks underneath your skin make goosebumps on the surface. Your whole being is illuminated like it wasn't moments before. You're going over the top of a roller coaster, and for a moment, you are weightless, and the world is still. You open your mouth, and only the sound of your breath comes out. The outside world fades into a state of focused attention on all that is beautiful. Do you know music that makes you feel like this? Without further ado, let me introduce you to the maker of such sounds that speak to the soul like you wouldn't believe. Poranguí reminds us that we are not separate from nature or from music or from each other. He breathes inspiration into crowds of people without putting on a show, but rather making them part of the show. Poranguí doesn't perform music, he serves music. Do you know what it means to serve music rather than just hit play on a pre-recorded track? Can you imagine what it feels like to stand on stage in front of thousands of people with no plan and improvise music that rises from your voice first? That one lone sound that fills the space first. That one sound that sets the tone for all that is to come. Do you know what it's like to trust what comes out of your mouth in moments like that? Do you know where that kind of energy comes from? Do you know where the music really comes from? Today, Poranguí gives clues. Dear Leadership and Yoga fam, I am speaking to you from the other side of both the interview with Poranguí and witnessing him perform live, accompanied by the brilliant dancing and spoken word of Ashley Klein. And I can tell you that I would have had a whole set of different questions after witnessing him live, but if you're like me, you may have meditated with music made by Poranguí, heard Illuminar played in Shavasana 100 times, and revisited his transcendental music you've saved. Before watching him, I felt I couldn't put him in a box musically, and afterwards I would tell you that I'm more convinced it is more spiritual and energetic, capital M music, as you will learn about. In today's episode, you will hear a bit of his story. Born in Brazil to a Brazilian mother and Chicano father, Poranguí grew up steeped in rich musical, healing, and ceremonial traditions from Brazil, Mexico, and southwestern U.S. He attended a Jesuit Catholic school in Arizona while spending weekends with his mother in Native American communities, where he learned to bridge the threads that connect us in our collective human experience. After witnessing him create live, for me, Poranguí became an example of what happens when a human turns their attention to how they can be the biggest light rather than how they can be in the spotlight just for the sake of being in the spotlight. Something I think we all might strive for a bit more. Rather than being an entertainer, he is a healer, helping move the energy in a space. He helps the audience shake off their funk and remember what it means to be free and fully expressed, what it means to love and be loved, what it means to be more authentically human. The player of a seemingly endless number of instruments, he is proficient in world percussion, guitar, voice, and numerous indigenous instruments. He shows us the true meaning of medicine music and how music changes us, our consciousness, and even our world. He creates music that helps people awaken without needing anything else. He is a creator of energy through music. And speaking with Poranguí made me remember why I fell in love with creating this podcast in the first place. I hope that if you are listening, you feel like you are sitting down to have a little tea chat and spend time in Poranguí's presence. I hope you feel the humanness of it, and also my own nervous excitement of putting a physical face and being in the physical space of someone you feel like you've known for years. Someone that I listen to inspire myself 5 years ago, before any of this yoga thing or podcast thing was reality. If past me could see this moment, she would be in disbelief. And even so it is. In a world full of distraction and numbness, Poranguí reminds us what it means to be fully alive and pay attention to what really matters in a world drowning in what doesn't. You'll hear about everything from creativity and the yoga of sound to the meaning of life on earth. We go right into the core of it. So, sit back, relax, but also lean in. Today, on the Leadership and Yoga podcast, Poranguí. So let's start with a nice deep breath. And as per usual, if you are listening, you can take that breath with us so that no matter wherever you are in the world, for this next hour, you're here with us. Poranguí, welcome to the Leadership and Yoga podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's surreal to sit here with you. And I feel like so many hosts must say that, but I really mean it because, I came across your music years and years ago, and you really make what it is that I'm constantly looking for, which is, to me, the most valuable thing. It is the inspired feeling of being alive. And so I'm excited to talk to you today about your music, about your story, and to ask you all the questions that I've never been able to ask while enjoying your music.
Thank you.
Yeah, and happened so quick, right? So less than 24 hours ago, I didn't know I was going to interview you, but I feel like with people like you, I always kind of have in the back of my mind questions that I would ask, and you're on tour right now, and for those of you who maybe have not listened to Poranguí's music, one, you should run and go and do that, but you're kind of known as what I would say like a one-man orchestra, like a multi-instrumentalist. And you have all these different instruments and different ways of bringing sound. And I was always curious, do you have an instrument that you enjoy the most, like a sound that you enjoy the most?
An instrument or sound that I enjoy the most? Ooh.
I guess they're different, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah. Great question. It's a hard one because most is such an interesting thing. It makes an assumption that there's a hierarchy. And I think for me, I don't hold it quite in that way. There's not so much a hierarchy. It's like, it's a matter of like, what is appropriate for the moment? In any given moment, there's something that is like, mwah.
Yeah.
And so it's like really, then it becomes the discernment to know what is appropriate at what moment. That's actually the mastery, is to know what to use when. So to choose a favorite, well, it depends on the moment. I would say out of that context, I likely would say it would be my body, including my voice, but also like body percussion and body sound. That for me, because I often, people ask me like, what is your favorite instrument? How many instruments do you play is a question a lot of people I'll get,
Yeah.
And technically, I have probably about 40 some odd instruments that I take on the road that I use in the performance. But what I say is always with me, and what is truly, all of us only really have one instrument. Everything else is actually an extension of the instrument, which is this amazing instrument we call a body, and which is a beautiful way because it connects very much to your, kind of your context with yoga, and your journey, right, through the body, which is to be embodied. What does that mean? Embodiment. So for me, like, via music, it's a way to bring us into presence, just like yoga brings us into presence. Yeah. And asana is asking us to come into this present moment through our breath, through our awareness, being able to sense what is within, what is without, the seen and the unseen. And for me, music is the language of that. Music, vibration is the language of water, and is the language of how we're able to really connect and sense with all of our senses to bring ourselves deeper and deeper into the now in a way that's inexpressible, and that music's able to express so eloquently. Yeah. And so the instrument, I think, would be the body. If I had to choose.
The body.
You're going to make me choose. I'm going to say the body. Because it's the one that's always there.
Yeah. It's the
also, right? Like right now, like I didn't bring any instruments in here, but I could just... we could just make some music, with just what's built in.
Because you're in really the creation of the live music.
That's right.
And this is one of the things that most impressed me when I found out about you is not only can you create tracks that are pre-recorded that I can listen back and I can still feel, the energy behind it, but every show that you do is live and improvised.
That's right.
And I think I have so much respect for that, especially as a yoga teacher. I think it's like the debate of should we sequence our classes or should we not, right? Should we see what shows, what comes up?
What wants to
and
rise. Have
you always done it that way? Or did you used to plan?
Yeah. Oh, I've been through... My musical journey in life has had a lot of different chapters, which is included at a time I've had bands, working with a lot of big band. Like I had a 10-piece Brazilian band for many years, where I always equate it to the metaphor of an aircraft carrier. It's like you have this huge boat, and if you want to make a hard left on an aircraft carrier, you kind of have to let people know, because if you turn that way, things are going to fall off as and drop off to the right as you're going left, and so you have to really let everyone know. So there's a lot more of there has to be a lot of trust and a cultivation of signs and symbols and being ready for the unexpected. But most people, and I say this, I'm generalizing, but a lot of people feel uncomfortable. There's a lot of anxiety in that. And so people get nervous. So I used to rehearse that band a lot because of so much repertoire of music that we could draw upon, but also because we had a lot of rhythmic breaks. It was very much a batucada kind of group. So if you know what I mean by that, it's drum centric with, with keys and with vocals, but very much it had this folkloric element to it. The group was Grupo Liberdade. And this group very much was, there's a lot of sound too. And so on a dime, I had to be able to call people to stop or to change the rhythm or the tempo or the key. So there's a lot of practicing and rehearsing to get to the place where you could then improvise within that structure. But it was always, for me, very limiting and they would always laugh because we would rehearse, they have these big, long rehearsals, and then we get to the stage. And then I was notorious for changing things on everybody on the fly. So they're and so it's kind of funny. The extension of that has been smaller and smaller bands until I finally developed my one-man performance, which is what I've been touring for the last decade or so. And with that has come this amazing freedom to be able to move in any direction. It's much more like a colibri, like a hummingbird.
You can go forward or backwards.
Exactly. How do you want to move? And so it allows me to be this fighter jet as opposed to the aircraft carrier. It's I can really respond so much more agile, right, to the moment. And what's alive? What is the audience feeling? What am I feeling? What is the unseen? What do the ancestors want right now? What is not being expressed in this moment that would complement and be appropriate to the moment? And so then it's it allows for this much deeper cultivation of our ability to sense and to know and I want to almost, I don't know why the word's coming to me, but divination. There's this divining process that you develop, this muscle, intuitive knowing where you can trust what is about to emerge and just trust it, even though you're literally jumping off into an abyss and you could miss, and not you always nail it either, that's part of it. But it's also the mastery, the self-mastery, right, is learning how to trust that process, that even if if you miss the landing, you don't stick it, you're able to turn that into something else. So that's it's like a capoeira. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No.
So there's an Afro-Brazilian martial art dance form known as capoeira.
Oh, yes.
It's very ancestral, comes from Brazil by way of Africa. And, in capoeira, it's very much about cultivating this ability to turn an attack into a defense or defense into an attack. It's very, almost like Aikido. It's very spiral and circular. And so this energy is always asking you, like, if someone is attacking you, yeah, you turn it into esquiva, you dodge the kick, but then you turn that into a counter, or you turn it into, you're falling, you turn that into an au, like a cartwheel. And so you're constantly transforming, something that is a failure, a mistake, into an opportunity of a new moment of genius.
Yeah, and that feels so good to hear you describe, and I recognize it and I see it in your work, and it's so unrestrained. It's not protective and like, oh no, what are the people going to think? Like I better fix this. I better, it's none of that energy. And it's exhausting, right? For the person who's in that energy and also for the crowd, to feel like somebody is really restrained. But I would ask you, how can you really train and help people to improvise? Because I know this is something you do.
Yeah.
So how?
How? Great question. How do you do it? Well, there's many ways, I believe. It depends on what medium, first of all, right, do we choose. I love the medium of music myself. And when I talk about music, I'm talking about dance, because for me, they're two sides of the same membrane, if you will, same coin. For me, they're both art forms that are temporal, meaning that they happen in time, and they're both concerned with the now. So that's what's so beautiful, right? The advent of recording kind of confuses and muddles this topic, but it just think about recording is only not even 100 years old, barely, and so it's still. So if we think about the long history of how long music and dance have been a part of the human experience, if you will, right, and meaning making for humans, they're like central to our meaning making. Like, how do we make sense of our, consensus realities? If it was just about making food and eating and pooping and having sex, life would be kind of boring. There's not, like, what really gives us the juice when you think about it.
I think modern society needs a reminder of that, though,
big time, right? This is why I do what I do, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's so much of my work. Is music, I find, is so generous, and it's so much fun. It's about play. And that's why I also mentioned capoeira. Capoeira is also very much about play. Even though it is a martial art, it's a martial art embedded with dance and with music. They're inherent to it. So you can be an incredible capoeirista. You could dominate all these movements and everything, have an incredible physique. But if you can't sing and push songs and when to sing a song and how to do that, or play an instrument, you're actually not a capoeirista. You're a martial artist. But you don't actually have the whole,ness. Right? There's a wholeness that wants to be cultivated. And same thing with music, right? I feel like the most incredible musicians I know, they're also dancers, and vice versa. When you can kind of cross through that membrane and tap into the other. And so, and if you don't dance all the time, I'm often playing the music in those contexts, it's like I can feel where the dancer is communicating with me and where I'm communicating with them. So there's this deep dialogue of communication that informs, where we want to take the play. And that's the thing. It's like this playful invitation of okay, oh, you're going to do that? All right, what about this? Oh, how about this? Or let's go here. What do you think of this? And without saying a single word. And it's that journey that really creates something, I think, that's really magical, because it helps us to cultivate the ability to face the uncertainty of life.
Yes.
And in the end, that's the essence. It's like life, the one thing we know for sure is that we don't know, right? The one thing that's certain is the uncertainty. Everything is uncertain. We don't really know what's going to happen in the next breath.
Yeah.
We don't. We think we do. We definitely constantly, so we spend a lot of our energy trying to predict and trying to fix and trying to control.
Yes.
But the truth is we don't know. We could walk out of here and our whole lives could absolutely change in a heartbeat, right? And so that cultivates this ability to be able to have trust in oneself and one's own autonomy, sovereignty, and self-mastery, And with that comes deep self-regulation. I cultivate to be in a parasympathetic nervous system, which again is yoga is such a beautiful example of this, right? And of course, there's many yogas, right? When we speak about these yogas that are known mostly here in the West. And so there's the yoga of sound, we could say, right? It's cultivating, what is that? What is the yoga of vibration? And so in a lot of ways, I feel like that's kind of what I like to bring in with people, and to bring the sense of playfulness. So the way I do that in the workshops, the retreats, and kind of the more teaching side of my work in the world is to invite people of various skills, to come into the circle. And we work often in a circle. And from that circle, which is a primordial geometry that is stable and is everyone's, there's no hierarchy in circle. We're all the same distance from the center. We can all see each other. We can all feel each other. We can all hear each other. And there's this energy, this stability in that gesture, and that symbol that's connective and it's unifying, that we each have multiple facets of perspective to the center and to one another. And so we can each bring our own unique gift, and our diversity is cherished and actually is enriching and makes the music better, right? While at the same time being a whole. So it's this experience of cultivating our ability to be both the drop in and also the ocean at the same time. And this is the non-dualistic kind of teaching that's at the foundation of yoga, right? It's like, how do we really cultivate our ability to be both in this body, in this experience of the egoic self and consensus reality, but also to connect to the non-dualistic truth of the universe and the cosmos.
And that connection to the truth, I feel like, can give you a kind of trust that your ego self cannot ever find in controlling and predicting and protecting in a way, or trying to do it that way. So I'd be interested to hear from you. I mean, to just push this one little bit further, and then we'll get into your story, of course. But
of course, no, it's
the experience of something like when you were at the Envision festival, one of them, and you're in the middle of this improvised production, full on, and the technology completely gives out, and you're kind of standing in what I would say for some people would be our worst nightmare, on the stage in front of people in the silence, unable, with this breakdown. Like, how in that moment, like, what goes through your mind? Just walk us through your thought process, because I think that the automatic, like the nightmare, the what do I do? Like, what do we do? That kind of switches on for us. But what would be kind of the alternative? Because I know that the way that you took it ended up actually making it into a highlight that people like me talk about.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. I mean, there's so many threads within that I could ride. I'm kind of feeling into, one of the things that so many musicians, artists, teachers, whether you're teaching yoga, you're teaching music or dance, I think we can easily forget is that we are providing a nervous system for the collective. They're tapping into and training to the nervous system that we are embodying. And there's no way to fake it. It's like you either feel it or you don't. Yes. It's like, right? It's subtle. It's in the body language. It's in the tone. It's in the sweat coming off your head. Like, there's so many little cues that are like non-cognitive, that are soma. We feel like we were saying, how we love being here in person with each other rather than trying to do this over the internet, right?
Yeah.
And so there's something, right, just in being each other's energetic field that is communicating beyond just our words here, beyond just the light reflecting off of our eyes and our skin. So when we're on a stage and you have lights on you and you're in this place of being amplified literally through the sounds and the speakers and the sound system, it's like there's everyone's in training to that. You're the dominant energy, if you will. And so much of this is where it's this interesting dance that I have being a quote unquote this artist, right? There's like this egoic self that's like, oh, I'm this artist, I'm this being, there's this name, there's this entity, if you will, where it's not even me. It's like people are projecting onto this thing, like onto a screen. That's actually not who my true essence is. And so being able to cultivate this ability to not over-identify with this thing and to remember that I'm just the butler and I'm here to serve. And that's at the core of it. And so in this context of like Envision Festival, this particular performance you're referring to, which, by the way, if anyone wants to see it ever, it's on YouTube. Just go to my channel and look Envision.
Yeah, we'll link it for sure in the show notes.
Yeah, because it's pretty wild. So like literally I was 15 minutes to the end of the set. It was the end of the festival on their largest stage, the Soul stage, and it's the live music festival stage. And I mean, it was really, there's a lot of layers to it because I was so sick. I'd gotten giardia from the water at the festival. A lot of people, I think, were not feeling well from the water. There'd been a bug going around. And so I thought I was going to have to cancel the set. I barely got out of the bed that morning and made it to sound check. And I thought I was going to have to cancel. And I was like, but I could feel it. I was like, I really have to do this. Something's really pulling me. So I had every reason to not do it. I was like, literally could not, I was running.
You could have tapped out and just given the excuse, like,
so
not
easily,
well.
Totally, 100%. Like, literally, I was scared to, blow on the didgeridoo. What's going to happen to me? It's like that. And so there's a lot of layers to this, but I'll save you all the gruesome details. But I basically made it through the sound check and we did it, and I was like, okay, just like trying to drink water and take care of myself. And then the set happened and I'm in it and like this energy, and this is what I mean. It's like being the butler, when we get into that state where it's not about me and my egoic self, and what it needs, and like this kind of, there's this, it's a subtle distinction, but I'm trying to put it into words and it's hard. But like, you know, I just saw, it's like, no, I'm here. So many have come to have this experience, and it was a full moon. And I was just like needing to call upon the elemental beings, like, give me this energy, please, right now. Help me. If I'm meant to do this, please support me. And it felt it, like things kind of shifted in my energy field. And I got out there, and the set was fire. Like, it was a very strong set. And I felt, because of all the hardship to get there, there's something that happens.
Isn't that, yes.
It's incredible. It's it's this thing that's in the field. And the energy was so high and so strong. The electricity coming through, I could feel it through my body. Whereas like, I felt totally fine. And in that moment, suddenly, this has happened in other sets. So I recognize it because it's happened to me before, where the prayer is so potent and so powerful that the technology literally can't hold it. Like, literally, I've had things that start to like glitch out and bugs happen, or like amplifier blow, like things like this will happen.
Things that you can't logically explain.
At all.
Yeah.
Like, really. And so suddenly, 15 minutes till the end of the set, I'm in the middle of playing the charango, and like, it's just fire. And all of a sudden it just goes, the whole thing just shuts off. And, there's a moment where you're just like, okay, now what? What do I do? And everyone's like, wow. And everyone's like yelling. They thought it was planned or something, right?
Yeah.
At first, I think no one knows what happened. And I was like, okay. And nothing's responding. None of the controls, none of my equipment was all off. And so I looked to the stage, and I was like, can I get, a microphone of some kind? Because the lights were still on. So I knew there was still power of some kind happening. And so they were working on that. And basically they brought me a wireless mic. And what came to me was, well, I still have 15 minutes. I could just forfeit. A lot of artists would just be like, well thank you very much. Have a good night.
Again, the excuse, right? To kind of protect the self from being exposed.
Or all the embarrassment or whatever energy is coming up, the failure. And so what I felt immediately was like, oh, here's an opportunity. Everyone came here to experience the medicine that's coming through me. And it's not about all my technology. It's actually about the presence. And so here's an opportunity for us to create presence together. And everyone here is the most incredible instrument in the universe. So let's just do this the way we used to do it when there was an amplification with 10,000 people. And so literally they gave me the wireless, and I came out and I got each part of the audience to start to, sing different parts and do kind of the work that I do in circle song and all the work that I do with music as medicine, the curriculum that I've developed in improvising. And so I led them through this, and then I started to drop this beatbox. And about the time I get into the beatbox, the sound engineers finally got the subs to kind of kick back on. And so I had like some bass, and everyone just like, freaked out. It was just this really beautiful moment to close the set with like this very organic, like back to the roots energy. And everyone got to co-create it with me in a very literal way, as opposed to like receiving it. They became really in a very, like, I'm always co-creating with the audience, like, because that's how I know what I'm going to do next. I'm feeling the energy of the whole. But it was like so explicit. It was like, no, this is you guys, we're doing this together. And there was something to that helped, I think, really gel that festival that year, that helped everyone feel like this closure of like, oh yeah, what is possible when the technology fails, which is very much a metaphor for what is happening right now, right, on our planet.
Yes.
What happens when the technology fails? It's not if, when it fails, how do we show up? When, we've outsourced all of our decision making to AI, right? How do we show up when that suddenly fails? And how do we continue to, respond to the uncertainty of life, kind of coming full spiral back to the beginning.
So after this moment, you go backstage and you're like, what was that? I mean, how do you feel?
Actually, I ran, as soon as I stopped and I got off and the adrenaline started to settle and all that, I ran to the toilet, to be honest, because it was like I was still very much sick.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was
and you're like, thank you, body.
Thank you for making it through.
How do you normally feel though after shows? Let's say without the stomach sickness.
I mean, generally, I don't have stomach stuff going on. I feel really good. I mean, it's an energy. How do I describe it? There's an energy of just I'm still flying. Like I'm still in the air often when I just come off of a stage. Like it takes a moment to kind of like come back to the center, to ground, because I'm holding so much. Part of like in doing what I'm doing, I guess I didn't say this earlier. It's like when I had a 10-piece band, what's amazing with a band is that you have other artists who are also holding space with you. You know, and when you're doing a solo thing, you're holding it all. And so there's all these levels of lateral thinking that have to happen. You know, you're tracking the music, you're tracking the next instrument that's happening, you're tracking the audience, you're tracking the person sitting on the sub over here with their drink who might spill it onto something. You know, you're tracking, I'm tracking Ashley, and Ashley was on stage with me, so she's holding space as well. Ashley's my partner, and she was doing spoken word and kind of guidance, and dance. And so you're tracking all these things, what's the engineer doing over here, or like what's the time, how much time do I have left? So you have to be tracking all these things. And then there's like, okay, what's spirit? What's going on in the star nations right now? What's happening with the moon? So you're just it's
staying present.
It's a multiple. It's like you get into a state where you're not able. You can't think of one thing. You're tracking all of these things at the same time while staying fully present in the now. And so this, like I said, so it becomes this lateral thinking. Like you widen your awareness field and your consciousness.
Sounds meditative.
It is. You're in flow state. I mean, it's truly how I experience flow state is like that. It's like you can't focus on anything or get stuck on anything, because the moment you do, that's when it all just collapses and crashes down. So you have to stay in this place of multiplicity. It's kind of like have you ever heard of Schrödinger's cat?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, this is an experiment from physics, but basically it's kind of how we talk about quantum mechanics. So the idea is that there's this cat in a box. I'll try to describe it briefly. And the cat's in this box, and the cat, when it's in the box, you don't know. It could be alive or it could be dead. You don't know the state of the cat because it's mysterious. But the moment you open the box and you look at the cat, the multiplicity, many parallel universes could be happening there. All these different possibilities are all possible. But the moment you open the box, then the cat like crystallizes and it's either alive or dead.
Two-slit experiment.
Like the two-slit experiment. It's a similar.
So once you observe it, it comes
the observer, right, is part of the experiment, right? Yeah. Often science doesn't want to acknowledge. Right. And so the same is true here. This is like this deeper truth is like all of these things are happening at the same time. And then the moment that it leaves your body and it's witnessed, it collapses and it crystallizes in that moment. But while you're in that kind of plasticity and that state, there's this like kind of liquid amorphous thing. You don't know what's going to happen. And you're in this just sensing and openness, kind of like an amniotic fluid of like potential that you're in. And you're really trusting that and you're following that. And you're like, something arises and it's like, oh, that, whew, there we go. And then you're there. And then it's like, what's next? And so you kind of, you're led in this way. But all that's happening like, then add in pulse by pulse.
And add into the fact that, again, like we mentioned, you have so many different ways of using the instrument that is your body, but you also have all these other instruments and microphones on stage. And one thing that strikes me about you and what you remind me of that I think is really important in all of this is that in creating excellence, because that's what I think, like when I listen to your music, I'm not like, oh yeah, it's good. It's like, this is from another world. And there's very few things, right, that make me feel that kind of like, yes. And you do it, but you don't do it just by pushing a button, right?
Yeah, no.
You remind me that it's really not about the efficiency. It's not about always just the practical or like the quick or the instant gratification. It's like the amount of training and the intricacy of what it is that you do just reminds me of that yeah, there is like work to be done, right? There is like devotion to this. And I've heard you mention before that you kind of, you do look for perfecting things or at least making them as best as they can be,
Yeah.
So
it's a, how do you say? It's kind of it's a delicate one because it's like perfectionism is one thing, right? The perfectionist. And it's actually my Achilles heel is the perfectionism. So I'm always tracking my perfectionist, right? Because I do have that and get me into trouble in this kind of OCD side of me. But the flip side of that, it's like there's a shadow, a light side and a shadow side to it.
Always.
The shadow side, right, is like getting really obsessive about something and it has to be this way. And the attachment, right? This attachment that leads me astray and I lose sight of actually the art, the beauty. And that's actually the light side. It's like, how do I make it more beautiful than I found it? It's that simple. It's just that question. How do I leave it more beautiful than I found it? Is that beautiful? It is. That's enough. And like knowing when it's enough. Instead of always being in this pursuit of like this absolute perfected thing that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And learning to really understand and appreciate the perfect imperfection. The things in their imperfection actually have such a beauty to them, and sometimes that's okay too. So that comes back to like being in service to the music, right? So for me, serving the music is like, what is going to serve the most right now? How can I be the best possible butler right now, right? How can I really support my students in this moment, right? To feel their own divinity in this moment, in the field, to feel that, right? To be selfless, to open ourselves to that. And it might be like something's a little out, and so it's like, oh, if I just tweak this thing or take this thing out, there it is, boom. Like, don't touch it, it's like that. And sometimes, right? So there's a thing, it's like there's a distinction there that I think is really important, because it's like a fine line that you fall into one or the other, right? When you ride that line, it's very much like you're on a surfboard with it. So it's like you could easily fall off this board very easily, just a centimeter to the left or the right. But you find your center with it, and then you stay in that dance, and you're constantly responding to it, and in that dance, it brings you to a place that you never would have gone otherwise. It's, you know what I mean?
Because there's an energy to carry you forward, and I love that you use the butler of the music and to serve the music in that way. And I have the sense that, music is in your veins since the beginning of time, based on, your parents and honestly your whole story. And I want to hear a little bit now, and to share with folks about your origin story, and of course, getting into music and becoming the artist that you are today, or the butler of the music that you are today. Both at once. Before,
but it seems like,
it is. Yes, I know. It really is.
Yeah,
standing ready. But you have one of the, I'm not sure to call it like the conception story, but like the origin story of, how it is that you were here on Earth, and your parents and how they met. It strikes me, and I'd love if you would share it with everybody, and we can talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a big story, but yeah. So my mother is from Brazil. She's from Minas Gerais. And my father's from Mexico City, Mexicano, but his father, my grandfather, was Scotch-Irish and Choctaw Indian. And he was born in Oklahoma, and had come down to Mexico after he left the military. He went to Mexico and met my grandmother. And she, of Totonaca descent mixed with Lebanese and French. So, yeah, big mix in my family. My mother's side, Tupi-Guarani, and some Angola as well, some African there. So indigenous blood, Portuguese, Italiano. So we have a big mix. When I did the 23andMe, it lit up the whole planet. It's kind of ridiculous. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I think I was just missing. I think I just need some Chinese, maybe some Japanese, and then an Aboriginal, and we'd have the whole planet covered. So it's pretty wild. So we joke about it in my household, because it's just like, yeah. But with that, so they met. My mother was actually, she ran away from home when she was young. She was one of 8. And she had a really hard time growing up in that household. And my grandfather on that side was, I guess, the Brazilian equivalent of a cowboy. And so he ran cattle. And so she took off, and she joined actually a street theater group in Chile. And she got into this really whole activism through street performance. And she was playing music, but mostly in that form through theater. And my father was an artist, a visual artist, but also playing music. And he was in this amazing place called Palenque in Mexico, which is in Chiapas. It's one of the most incredible places on the planet, in my humble opinion. It's Mayan ruins, the tomb of Pacal, which is a very famous tomb. A lot of people know of it because of the Mayan astronaut they talk about. So on the tomb of Pacal, there's a beautiful, on his sarcophagus, there's a beautiful carving of stone that shows it looks like this priest basically operating a vessel, if you will. So some people who talk about that and the connection with the stars.
Yeah.
But it's a very deep place, and only 3% of it has ever been excavated. So most of it's still buried within the forest. And so my folks were there. My dad was there, and he was actually working with another artist, a friend of his who was visiting. My dad does leather burning. And so he does these really beautiful designs doing the Mayan glyphs. And he would do these Mayan glyphs. He was teaching actually other locals how to do the Mayan glyphs using this leather burning technique. And my mother was there off the road with their group. They'd been touring. And so this crazy thing happened. So my dad's friend was visiting him. And I should ask my dad if I have his permission to say this, but I think it's okay. So there's an amazing mushroom that grows there called the San Isidro mushroom, which is it's a local mushroom that grows in the rainy season there, and it's psychedelic. And so my dad and his friend had just taken these mushrooms. And as I understand it, is that my dad was sitting at the base of these beautiful waterfalls known as the Baños de la Reina, the Queen's Baths. And his friend was sitting across on the other side of the river and started pointing at the water. My dad was just getting into the medicine, I think was feeling connected to spirit in that way, and looks down and there's this huge serpent, this víbora that is a water snake that's very venomous, that was coming right towards him where he was standing. And my dad reports to me that he was going through various things in his, like, what do I do with
Was he like, is it real?
Yeah, is it real? Am I just tripping? Or is this like, is it going to attack me? Or like, should I fight it? Like, do I get out of its way? Like all these things. And so he decided, he's like, maybe I should move. And so he climbs up the waterfall. It had a cascading waterfall. So he climbed up the waterfall and he's watching. And right where we were standing, there was a stump. And so the serpent goes into the stump right where he was. It was like its nest. And just to be sure, he's like, I'm going to keep climbing. So he gets into the next waterfall and he turns around and there's my mom bathing in that second waterfall. And that's how they met. So basically this serpent chased my dad up the waterfall and to my mother. And apparently they both report, even they didn't stay together, but until I was 3 years old, they split. But they invoked me not long after. So that was kind of how I was brought into this world, was through that portal. And with that, my father felt very compelled to name me João Quetzalcoatl, which is the plumed serpent. My mother, who, she conferred with some of our medicine elders, and they were like, that's too strong of a name to give him. Like, don't do that. And so she ended up giving me the name Poranguí, which has come from Tupi Guarani, as I mentioned earlier. And so that's how I received my name. But I kept João Quetzalcoatl is like it's my middle name.
Middle name.
Yeah, it's kind of like my spiritual name. So yeah, that's a little bit of like how my folks met. And so they were both into music and art. And yeah, kind of because of them parting ways when I was young, I ended up bouncing back and forth between the southwest of the US and Arizona and Mexico and Brazil. And so kind of grew up between these three worlds, three cultures, three tongues and ways of seeing the universe. And yeah, since an early age, my mother taking me into ceremony as well as my father, and being connected to music in that way. Yeah, there's a lot to it, but
there's so much to it. But have you been chased by any snakes yourself?
I actually have. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, serpent medicine is a big part of my medicine bag. Yeah, definitely one of my deep teachers. And when I was, I did a vision quest when I was about 21 years old. My mother took me and put me up to do my multi-day. It's about a 4-day vision quest. And Wamblicha it has different names in different cultures, but my mother took me into the reservation of the Poranguí Indians in northeastern Brazil. The first night they asked me to stay in they have these huts where they do their ceremonies, and it's just like a thatch hut. And I ended up going in there, and all I had was, my just a pullover, and like I had nothing. You're there, and I just had my medicine ties that I made in my circle, and I was sitting there, and it rained the first night. Like huge rainstorm came in. And so there's water flooding in all around me. And I was just sitting there, and I had a flashlight. And so I turn on the light and I look, and there's, I get up and I felt like a presence, and I'd made like a pillow out of my jacket. And I looked down where my jacket was, and this coral snake, about this long, like a little baby coral snake, comes slithering out from underneath my head. Right where I was laying down. And I was just like, a lot goes through your mind in that moment, right? And one is like, wow, like that's a very venomous snake. And it was right under my head. And I'm thinking to myself, I got to stay for 4 days. This is my first night. And you're thinking, like, do I stay here?
Had you experienced anything like this before? Like just the whole, being in that condition, sleeping where snakes can just roll in like that?
I mean, not like that. Not like that.
So this was a...
Yeah, this was a test. This was definitely a big test. And so, I watched the snake with my flashlight for a while, just kind of like being like, okay, you're still there, It kind of checked out my prayer ties and like took a sniff of the tobacco and then kept going, and it went into the wall. And so I'm like, okay, turn off the light. Got to save the battery. Still water kind of coming in. And I'm just like, wow, it's going to be a long night,
Yeah.
And then I turn the light back on and I see another snake. And this one's about this big. And he's going he's like over by this other side of the little hut that I'm in. And I'm like, okay, wow. So there's two of them now. Okay. And all the things that go through your mind. Finally, I turn my light off again. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to pray. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just like, just connecting to this and feeling the fear and feeling all the things that come up in our mortality. And finally, I turned the line back on, and that one had disappeared. And I'm like, okay, they're gone. I think I'm good. And then I see this thick body of a snake going in and out. And I just see the colors, right? The different colors of the white, the black, and the red, and the snake. And it's like, it must be the papa snake or the mama snake. I'm not sure. But I was like, oh God, it's huge. And it's like going in and out of the thatch. It's kind of like going around me, weaving itself into the thatch. Yeah.
Ooh.
And so I'm just like, oh, great. This is going to be a long night. And right then my batteries die in the light. And I'm just like, okay, all right. And I got it. Like it suddenly dawned on me. I was like, surrender. And in that moment, I literally just said, oh, if I'm supposed to go, so be it. Like, I trust. Spirit's asking me to trust. Can you trust? What is your level of trust? And so I laid down, went back in my little pillow, and I fell asleep somehow. And I remember so distinctly, it was like this feeling of just like calm had come over my body. And I woke up in the morning to like this sound of birds and like, the sun had come out. And it was just like,
you made it.
And that was night one of this 4-day sit that I did. And it was very powerful. And, a lot more happened, but I'll just share that at the end when they came to get me and my face was covered in mosquito bites and like I'd gone through all kinds of things, and they picked me up and then we went back to the fire that had been tended while I was in the journey. And the page of the tribe was with my mother, and she's like the medicine woman of the tribe. And I told the story about the snakes the first night, the coral snakes. She laughed and laughed and laughed. And I'm like, what's so funny? And she's like, oh, well, those are our ancestors. They were just making sure. They didn't know what you were doing in our ceremonial grounds. So they were just making sure you were coming in a good way. And I was like, wow, you could have told me, right? You could have just given me a little heads up. Like, it was perfect.
But
right?
you had to have that moment of surrender.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you too about, because you talk about your ancestors and ancestors in general, but how often is it that you're, I guess, calling upon your ancestors? Like, do you call upon your ancestors specifically? And I just think this is an interesting topic because a lot of us in like modern day society, we might not be like thinking about that. We don't even know how something like that could work or happen or like why we would do, Yeah. So anything you can give us around just your thought process around, your ancestors.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, I think ancestry and our ancestors are, and I call them anceStars intentionally,
I love that.
Yeah, because they really are. They're always with us. And it's so easy, to get into our minutia and our day-to-day life and to forget and to really lose track of like, wait, where do I come from? How does this inform me right now? Again, talking about the present moment. It's like to be fully present. For me, part of being present is to acknowledge where I've come from and where I'm going, right? And to trust. There's like a deep trust. Like I trust that all the things and all the sacrifices that had to be made by my ancestors so that I could be sitting here right now with you having this conversation.
Wow.
Like really to sit with it, right? To take
you.
it, to put it into your presence right now, those who are watching this, like what had to happen with all of our ancestors, the good, the bad, and the ugly ones, all of them, because a lot of us, we have blood of both colonizer and colonized. We have the blood of rapist inside of us, of murderer inside of us. We have the blood of savior. We have the blood of kings, and we have the blood of, all of it. It's within us. It's all been mixed up in a beautiful soup of this human journey, all the way back to our mitochondrial grandmother in the heart of Africa, who we all carry. I mean, that's scientifically proven. And so it's easy to forget that because we come in all shapes and colors and sizes and what have you. And so I think it's so beautiful to recognize and to find out your ancestry if you can, to do that exploratory work. A lot of time families are very ashamed. There might be parts of the lineage like, oh, we'll talk about these ones, but we don't talk about that one over there.
Those
no. Those ones, those.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Familiar.
There's often that,
Yeah.
There's a lot of amnesia. There's a lot of forgetfulness. Some of it's unintentional and some of it's intentional. But part of that then is trusting that even if you don't have access to that our ancestors are with us always. And so being able to take the time to call them in and to pray to them and to ask for their support, to ask for their blessing is really, I think, a powerful, an important part of being a two-legged human being on this earth at this time. It's because it's like through that connectedness, I really have this deep understanding belief that I've received. It's like those sacrifices, those mistakes that have already been made, oftentimes they end up getting repeated and repeated through generations, right? And some of us, especially if we go to like the yogic traditions, would speak of reincarnation, that we are, we've been doing this over and over again, how many times, right? So there is that perspective, and whether or not someone wants to believe reincarnation, it's like understanding that there is this non-linearity of time. As much as our mind wants to put it on an arrow, it's to remember that the arrow actually bends and the arc of time is curved. And so ultimately it becomes the hoop. And this hoop of life, right, that is connecting us with all of those beings of all time, including the next 7 generations yet to come. So in that way, as we honor our ancestors, we also honor the 7 generations. And so we feel our connectedness in that way. It's like I equate it to the oldest of our trees. If you look at the oldest forests, right, and you look at their root systems, right, the trees that have fallen and they've fallen over, oftentimes their roots are still there. They're still in that mycelial network, and they're informing still and connecting and communicating.
Yeah, even though the tree is no longer there.
Even the tree is no longer there.
That's beautiful.
And that intelligence is a collective intelligence. I like to call ancestral intelligence. And I bring that up because we talk about AI now, right? We're in this age of AI emerging. But we forget, and we're already outsourcing all of our like decision making, our own inner knowing and wisdom. Crazy. We're like, well, what would AI say? Let me just check it real quick.
No,
it's how quick that happens, right? And so I really like to invite, all of us to remember our ancestral intelligence, like recognize and remember that there's an inner knowing that's already happened for generations leading to you, that you are the prayer of your ancestors being manifest now, in this now. And so this is the opportunity to trust that deeper knowing, your seed of intuition, your dantian, your like root, right? And so when you feel that, that hara point, like being able to connect with that and trust your breath, and as it expands and contracts, and the space in between the breath, that membrane, that therein lies the pulse that's going to tell you the or and just trust that. Be able to trust that, because that comes from something so much greater than no algorithm could ever replace.
I completely agree with you. That is the most beautiful way that it's ever been said, at least in my presence. And it rings so true. And, I'll take us one little dive deeper into the weeds and then back out the other side and back up into music here. But, when I knew that I was going to interview you yesterday, I was like, I better put a scrap of paper by my bed, because I'm notorious for just like getting random ideas in the middle of the night. And I'm like, I'm surely there will be some intuitive question, some like, what do I really want to ask Poranguí? And he's in my presence. And I wrote something in the night, and I was really excited to look at it in the morning, because I was like, oh, I don't remember it. And see, that's exactly why I wrote it. And I was super excited. And I look at the piece of paper, it's really ugly scribbles, and it just said, why are we here?
Wow.
And I laughed when I saw that, because I do really like to ask people, like what you really believe is the meaning of life. And I know it's such a big and such a lofty question, but when we're talking about all of our ancestors and all of these lives, right? What are we, like, what are we really doing here?
It's a beautiful question. I mean, it is in some ways the question.
It is.
Right. One of my dear friends and teachers and mentors over the years, his name's Silver, and he's a medical doctor, and he used to be the director of the University of California, San Francisco Medical School, and integrative medicine at Duke. And he's brilliant, but he's also Apache. He's an incredible man, and has been an inspiration to me. I was recently visiting him with him over my birthday, because we played a bicycle day show in San Francisco. And when I went to go visit him, and so we were laughing together, and he was reminding me, it's like of this deep kind of like axiom, if you will, where they say it's like in Cartesian kind of philosophy, right? Descartes, they say, I think, therefore I am. And he was saying, but it misses something. It misses interbeing, which is a much deeper, holistic way that the indigenous hold, which is I am because we are. And like it carries with it such an important, I think, part of this question, of the answer that goes to this question that you just posed. It's through our interbeing, right, that we find the real meaning of why are we here. And the interbeing, like we were just talking about, this mycelial network, right? It's like mycelium, right? The fungi know. They carry this intelligence. They literally are the ones who help turn death into life. That's their job on the planet, right?
Yep.
They literally take all of our waste, all of our junk, all of the stuff that we don't want to deal with or know what to deal with, including plastic, and can digest it and turn it back into life. Like they carry that in our nervous system. I don't know that it's a coincidence. It models, right, is just like a mycelium, right? All the neurons and the way that our nervous system lays out, dark matter in the cosmos also carries the same architecture. And so you look at the way of what are the expressive patterns in the cosmos, right? They're in spirals. They work in these spirals. You look everywhere. Spiral dynamics is everywhere, right? In the pine cones, in the way notes look, right? Harmonic series, which are scales that are available everywhere in nature.
Yeah.
You have the harmonic series, and you have these inverted harmonics also, right? These scales that are inverted, so they're like a mirror. They go above and below, and so there's so many worlds that show us that we are here as part of a much greater, beautiful design. And so it's cultivating the ability to really see our sacred function in that design, which I personally am a believer that this is more than, like I said earlier, about eating and consuming and just having a lot of subscriptions. That's, I think, as much as the powers that be might want to see that be like what we all succumb to. And we're so much more. Consumer culture, and what is a byproduct of capitalism, which is just this little blink of an eye in the great span of time.
Truly.
Right? The capitalism has become the default kind of normative culture that we've, of course, in the United States have exported to the whole world. So now everyone's in capitalism, full on. And even what we're communist countries, and it's serving this liberalism, which there's good things to it. But the flip side to it, right, is that it loses sight. It's all about the individual, and it loses sight of the we. And there's something really genius, that socialism was trying to get at, but it also failed in certain ways. But we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I get really curious, as this Aquarian side of me is like, what is after capitalism?
Yeah.
What is next? Like, what is on the horizon right now, right? What is after the current systems of governance that are failing and failing our ecosystem, failing our responsibilities two-legged? And I really believe it's connected to human beings cultivating and mastering our birthright, which is the keepers of fire. Because we're the only species on this earth that were given fire. The only ones. And fire includes the fire of technology. So artificial intelligence and what we're seeing now, right? This kind of like everyone's trying to sell and push. It's like, well, a fire, what do we know about fire? Fire, when it's tended, when it's cultivated, when it's mastered, it has the ability to do so much, right? Creates all this technology, all these things that we have, all the things, right? It can nourish our bodies. It can allow us to eat things that otherwise would be poison. It allows us to be alchemical. We're become wizards, right? But when it's not tended well, what happens? It incinerates us. So it can illuminate us or it can incinerate us. And we have both. It's our choice. And so we're at this, I think, this really important crossroads right now is two-legged of like, how do we navigate mastery of that in a very embodied way, in a somatically knowing way, not in a disembodied way, which is kind of like the default, I think consensus reality wants us just to be passive consumer, just keep taking, have a subscription to everything, an app for everything. When really we're being asked, no, how do I own my relationship to fire? How do I actually rub my hands together and know, just like my ancestors did for how many generations, how to create that ember and ignite that and illuminate? And I mean that also is the metaphor, right? How do I take my movement, my practice, and illuminate and create beauty through that mastery of fire? And fire, the other side of that, and this is in the work that I do with Music as Medicine, when we're in the circle, I often talk about this, the metaphor of the circle is that in the center of the circle, when we're all standing in a circle, it's hot. There's a fireplace. And we're tending that fireplace. When we're all standing in a circle and we're singing together, we're stoking that fire. And often one person will go into the center and we call them the spark. And so the job of the spark is to empty themselves, right, of any preconceived song or notions or anything, and to receive the listening of the circle and then capture that sound, whatever it might be. Not something that they ever rehearsed, but something that arises in the moment. And then from that sound, it kind of, the whole spaceship takes off, the whole song then starts to form from that. It's like the first spark of creativity. And so in that same way, we tend that fire, we're custodians of it. And when we tend that well, so much beauty can emerge from that. And it creates this connective tissue through the music and through the dance.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like that's where music and dance are like the connective tissue, literally the fascia of our society that we've lost.
I was going to ask because, yeah, in the face of knowing that our systems have failed and that our leadership has failed in many different ways, what can we do really as healers, as teachers, also just as listeners too, like participants in all of this?
Co-creators.
What can we really do? Like what actually allows us to impact the world, you know? Like what, because you talk about this idea of a spark and I love that. And I believe that the creativity is part of it, but just to hear it from you, you know, how do we take the creative in this thing that's so dismissed, like, oh, we don't really need that, you know, or we've got other technology for that now. But I believe that there is something to what you're doing and just the creation of music or whatever the medium is that can really actually impact the world and raise the vibration, change the world in many different ways.
Yeah. One of the things for me is, you know, also back to your question of why are we here? Why are we here? It's like, in the essence of it, I believe we're here to remember our heart song. Our heart song. And what does that mean? I believe that we're each born into this earth. We were given, by just the nature of this body and this instrument, 2 vocal cords and an incredible wealth of drums just built in, including the one that beats constantly in our chest, that reminds us, this only spiral muscle of our body that beats this spiral, reminding us of the architecture of the cosmos and bringing us constantly to the now. When our mind is so busy worrying about tomorrow, yesterday, the heart is there beating, constantly pulsing us back into the now, and teaching us what is unconditional love, what is the infinite possibility that's here right now that we get to choose differently in the next beat, the next pulse. And when we remember that we're here to pulse with one another, and we trust that voice to open up and express our truth and our beauty and our radiance, there's something that is possible when that is expressed from that truth, from that authenticity, from that vulnerability, from who we truly are, our essence. When that song is sung, it's like the universe gets brighter, literally brighter. It's like literally a bloom of a rose is opening on this beautiful rose bush. As each of us kind of opens, there's another bloom, another bloom, another bloom. And
because of the life, like the literal light of aliveness, is that what you mean?
Yeah, the literal aliveness. And it's not just aliveness, it's like the self-realization. It's like the remembrance of one's song and why you came here, because only you can sing your song. I can't sing your song. Only you can do that.
Yeah.
Only this voice, this instrument is one of a kind. Each of us is a one of one. Which is incredible, right? We're Stradivarius. We're like, that's it. There's no 2 alike in the whole universe. This is why biosecurity wants to use biometrics, uses the voice, because there's no 2 voices alike. And in all my work, I've come to this understanding that the voice is the fingerprint of the soul.
Oh.
And so it's the fingerprint of the soul. So feel that. Like, what does that mean? You know, it's like, so when we're silent, when we have not allowed ourselves to open and to allow that vulnerability, because it's naked. You can't hide behind it. It's your voice. It's you. It's your essence. And so there's this vulnerability inherent to it. This is why so many of us, when we're children, right, we're just singing. We're just free. We're so close to source. And then often, right, someone that we trust or love tells us to shut up, to shut down, right, to keep it down, keep it quiet. Hey, stop. And so that we believe that. And in that moment, there's a contract. It's an agreement. We believe what they say, and we make an agreement. In that belief, it creates a layer of scar tissue.
Oh my gosh.
And then it happens again. It's reinforced on the playground. There's another layer of scar tissue. And then it happens again in our relationship with a loved one, another layer and another layer. Next thing we know, we're so closed down. And there's so much that wants to be expressed, but we don't have any more. Like, it's just so been silenced for so long. So that's why the work that I do, I call music is medicine, because it's like we are able to connect back to that and unravel that scar tissue and give it a safe space to be expressed again and the tools to do it. And that process, I believe that remembrance and that reconnecting and unraveling is why I do what I do. I mean, that's why, for me personally, my dharma is this. Like, I know that's what I have to do on this planet, is to like share this and ignite that spark in others so that they can share it too, because there's not enough of me or any one of us to do it. We have to do it together.
Yep.
And that's really why I do what I do. I mean, honestly, in a way, stage and performance on big stages just get people to really come and do the deeper work with me. It's like
Sure.
that's really it, because that's where I find I make the greatest impact in positivity that I can at this time on the earth.
Yeah, and it's contagious from there. It
Yeah.
spreads. You free yourself. You inspire other people to free themselves as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask what, and because I'm very interested behind, like, when you're about to get on stage or just in general, do you have rituals or things that you do specifically that help you get into a state that you are ready to show up in a way that helps people free themselves?
Yeah.
Or are you more spontaneity?
I mean, both.
Yeah.
I'd say both. Yeah. I would say there's something really for me every time before we perform, I always pray, and that's something that I always do with my whole team. Ash and I, we bring in whoever's with us, whoever's hosting us, any friends or family that are there. And we anchor the intention of what we're going to do with the prayer. And in that prayer, always we acknowledge the land that we're on, wherever we happen to be, whatever city, whatever place on this beautiful Pachamama that we're in, and acknowledge the First Nations that are there, and invite the ancestors that are of that place, and then our ancestors who we carry with us, and the spirits, the elemental beings, to collaborate with us, work with us, like help us to create this space of healing. Because for us, it's not about entertainment; it's really about entrainment, and that's like at the core of it for me. It's like
it's not performative. It's a co-creation process.
Exactly. And so, and with the audience and with the unseen, and the space, whatever space we find ourselves, whether we're outdoors in nature, which is our preference, of course.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't get that privilege. We have to work in a club or some kind of a bar space, where there's like other energies present. And so it's like, how do we bring the prayer there? How do we bring that intentionality? And it's beautiful. I mean, we're always so touched. Like when at the end of the night, like, the bartenders are like, wow, I've never experienced anything like that. Thank you. Like, people are like, that was, just win them over, with that energy. And yeah, then we know we're doing our job. It's like the ones, not the believers, it's the naysayers.
The naysayers are feeling like, hey, I feel kind of different now.
That's it. When the sound guy who's like disgruntled and been working in this venue for years, is like,
yeah,
what the fuck just happened? Yeah. And that's when we know we're doing our job. It's kind of those reminders, and that spins us up to keep doing it, keep leaning in. It's a lot of work. It's definitely, we laugh sometimes, like missionary work in a way, but it's like, it feeds us in a deep way, because when we see those wins, we just were in Port Townsend, and this elder was there who had come to one of our retreats. And he left me this letter. We literally got there to teach a workshop, and he left this like typed out letter on top of the soundboard with my name on it. And like I open it, and it's this letter, and he's telling me about he was born. He's like 85 years old, and he was born by this doctor who basically used forceps and like pulled him out and almost killed him. And the doctor was gonna actually put him out of his misery, and I guess, but decided to put him in the arms of his mother, and he ended up surviving. And so, but he's had all these problems his whole life of like sinus problems, and like his cranial bones were all like crushed through that process. And basically through this process, he's not been able to sing. He's had all kinds of challenges, but he came to the retreat, and he said at the end of the retreat, some of the activities we did were so challenging. He had this crazy headache, and then something popped, and it literally like some bone moved that hadn't moved his whole life. And suddenly he felt all this relief of pain and had this transformative experience, and that he was just like, I'm so grateful. He's like, music is medicine. He wrote in the letter, and it's like those stories are just like, wow, that's what gives me, really, it's the mana that helps me to continue going,
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'd ask you, as we move towards wrapping up here, what do you really hope that people begin to understand about the power of music? And this is a very general question, but I just want to hear, I mean, this kind of speaks to your mission and why you're doing all of this, but yeah, what does it really do for us? What's the true power of music?
I would say music has the power to express the inexpressible. Music expresses the inexpressible. So it is language, it is communication, it is, of course, frequency. And it's frequency, not just, whatever frequency. It's frequency that has intention behind it. And for me, music, I make a distinction between music, capital M, and music, lowercase m. And music, lowercase m, would be music that is used for industry, the music that's been enslaved, that's been colonized, music that's to sell you something.
Yeah.
Music that then is used for extractive purposes. But music, capital M, is music that is the consciousness of music. It is a being. She exists whether or not we know anything about her. She's always there. You don't make music. We actually, as we cultivate our deeper listening, we learn that music's already there. It's flowing. It's like a radio station. It's already going. You just tune into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this river that's already flowing, and you just let go of the bank and allow her to take you. And you don't know where she's going to go. She's the winds and the turns, and there might be rapids, there might be some rough waters, but like, just trust that she's returning to source, and she's going to take you back to source. And if we can trust that and learn and cultivate our ability to navigate and to be in that, then she'll take you to these places that you'd never imagine. And so that for me is where music, my relationship with music has been. And I believe it's all of our birthright, just like fire is this understanding of music is all of our birthright as well. You know, there's a lot of people who have the story, oh, I'm not a musician, you know, and there's definitely different degrees of skills and cultivation. Some people are born with certain, you know, natural talent, for instance, with music, and others, they really have to work at it. But any way you go about it, music's there for us. And so much of our culture has created music as this thing that, like, if you're not a musician, the only way to experience it is to be a consumer, to be a listener, which there's nothing wrong with. But there's something, as I said earlier, that's magical when you start to open your voice, and not for a performative reason, not even to show anyone, just for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I invite people to always, like, think of the birds. Like, the birds, they're just going off. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're not like, hey, Robin, you were a little flat there. Can you run that again? You know, no, they're just like,
Can you record me?
Yeah, exactly. They're just going, right? They're singing. They're singing to the beings. They're communicating with the seen, the unseen all the time, with the elements, with the sun, with the wind. You know, they're giving thanks for their life, for this life that we all share.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to that theme of interbeing, like, this is it. It's like opening our voice and starting to have our relationship to our voice. And I invite our listeners to really cultivate your yoga of sound, your yoga of music, right? Cultivate that in your practice, whether or not you choose to bring that to others, just for yourself. There's so much mana in that, so much beauty and healing that you will receive in that. And as that fills and overflows, you'll naturally find that when you then share that with others and you create music together, there's a connectivity. There's this connectivity that's inexpressible. And that's why so many communities out there, you know, that I've visited around the planet, they all say when you sing together, the communities, the people who sing together, stay together.
Yeah. So to understand capital M music would you say is basically coming from this source, this nature, this beyond, this connective, you know? And if you're hearing that, you might be like, what the heck are you talking about? But then you feel it, you know?
That's it.
Because
And that's the thing.
You've sparked this other question I had on this subject, which is that sometimes when you listen to music, especially if you're kind of meditating, there's certain sounds that just feel like they make your mind melt, like just fall down backwards into a well, but it's actually into space. I don't know how to describe it, but you know, it just you just feel it, like it feels like it almost physically touches you. Why do you? I mean, would you describe it differently? I don't know, but why would you think that is? Like, why?
Why does sound touch us in ways that nothing else touches?
Yeah.
Well, it's really beautiful. So, like, you know, we live in a culture nowadays where we have to see it to believe it. And now we're really getting thrown for a loop because of, you know, all the deep fakes and all these things that can, like, you can't trust even what you see anymore. It's no longer. And so sound, ever since the beginning of existence, the beginning, like just for a moment, like, close your eyes if you're tuning in here and just visualize when you were in the amniotic fluid of your mother. To be in the darkness, to be in just that subtle light coming through the skin of her belly, and to be in the liquid, the swishing sounds, and all you heard was this pulsing drumbeat of her heart, and then this little fast drumbeat of your heart, and her woo 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 woo, and those two together in this polyrhythmic dance, right, going in and out of phase, in this beautiful symphony that was like, right, the original pulse that brought you into this now. And in that place, it's like we connect to its mysterious power that it penetrates us at the deepest levels. Before we had vision, we have sound and feeling, and it's tactile. It's not even like necessarily full 20 hertz, 20,000 hertz. It's just feeling that vibration, that rippling of the fluids of water, remembering that we all come from the water. on this beautiful water planet. We're in water bodies. So I just invite us to remember that. And so this
The
is why
original vibration.
it touches us in ways that nothing else can touch us, because it goes back to that primordial relationship, that we come from water.
Yeah. Wow. I'm like, how am I supposed to continue the podcast after that? No, but sincerely, this is so beautiful, and I could go on, and I knew it was going to be a challenge to limit. So we'll get to the final question of the interview. We'll do it, but the final question is always the same, and it's the idea is that if you had a billboard that was going to be seen by everybody in the world,
wow,
what would you put on your billboard? And it can be a phrase that you live by. It doesn't even have to be words if you don't want it to be words.
Yeah, right.
But what would you put on this ultimate platform, this ultimate billboard? Serve the music.
Serve the music. That's what I would put.
Nice.
That's what I would put. And that's why I named this tour that we're currently on, Serve the Music. Capital M music, of course, right?
Yeah.
For me, I think that's something, and it's something I say when we're doing the work in Circle, and I'm teaching people various levels, about this improvisation and music. Like we're improvising constantly, and there's a lot of games and ways to get into it. And one of the things with it is like people are like, well, how do I know what I should do? Like, and so I just say, well, ask yourself, does this serve the music? Right? Like, should I take a solo right now? Well, does it serve the music? If it does, then absolutely. But like, there's this ability to just ask ourselves this deeper question, like, is this serving the music? And which is the same thing as saying, does this serve life? Is what I'm doing now serving life? Am I serving this greater purpose? Am I serving the music? If I am, then yes, absolutely, go forth, And if not, well, maybe there's another way that I could do it. Because sometimes serving the music means being silent. Sometimes serving the music means take that solo, So it's like really, for me, it's such a powerful question. So I would put on that billboard, serve the music. And, with that, right, serve life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understanding, does this serve the music? Does this serve life?
Yeah.
All of life?
Yeah. Because music
like
is the
that.
soundtrack of life.
Music is the soundtrack of life. Yeah. So where can people find you and your music? Because I know that you have events, you have the tour, you've got all kinds of things.
A lot of things happening, yeah.
I want people to continue the feeling of this podcast with some more of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I invite folks to come out. We're on tour right now. We're actually going to play here in Seattle tomorrow.
I can't wait.
I don't know if they're going to get it in time to see this, but maybe you can pulse people out. But we'll be playing at the Washington Hall tomorrow night, which is really great to be here in Seattle. And then we're heading down the coast. We're going to be in Eugene and at the McDonald Theater. Then we go up and play the Crystal Ballroom in Portland, which is going to be a beautiful night. With a bunch of indigenous performers as well. After that, we continue on. We play in Bend and in Ashland. And then from there, we continue. The tour is going to be hitting other countries as well as Europe this summer. We'll be in Europe in the fall doing 2 different big tours. We'll be playing in Iceland for the eclipse this summer. So there's a number of things. So if people want to learn more, there's a lot of different places around the planet where we're going to be. Please tune into our website, poranguí.com, Porangui.com. And then I would say if you'd like to learn more about the retreats where we go into this work of music as medicine and breath work combined with sound healing and a lot of tools, basically empowering people to open up their
to learn all this that we've just described.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's wonderful. It'll be all in the show notes, so it's there for you. And I can't wait to witness you perform tomorrow live. The first time ever. I feel super blessed to have had this sort of behind the scenes moment with you beforehand. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And if you're listening, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the episode. We will catch you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao. If you enjoyed this episode with Poranguí, please take a moment to drop me a rating for my podcast and also to subscribe to my show. Your support means the world to me and also enables me to continue to sit here and bring you interviews with people like Poranguí in the first place. Ultimately, the highest form of support for the show is becoming a patron of the show and joining the Leadership and Yoga Club, which is linked in the show notes for you. And also, if you are willing and able to share this episode with the world, whether that's on social media or sending it directly to a friend that you think would resonate, that is how momentum for this show is built and is greatly appreciated, regardless of if this is your first episode or maybe the last one or the first of many, or you've already listened to hundreds. I'm grateful that you're here, and I believe in you. All the love and all the power to you.